On the 2nd of July, 2025, a Ukrainian Vila M team prepared to target a Russian ammunition depot when the enemy's Zoopark M1 radar suddenly detected them from 38 kilometers away. In mere minutes, what began as a harassment mission turned into a desperate fight for survival as a barrage of Smerch missiles closed in with their time to live measured in seconds. Could they complete their mission and escape before being annihilated? Join us to explore this heart-pounding second-by-second journey in the video where cutting-edge technology, daring tactics, and survival intertwine in the brutal war in Donbass. If you find this content gripping, comment the number 1. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with new content. The plan was simple: occupy a firing point, deliver a precision salvo into a munitions hub, then vanish before the enemy could draw a bead. That changed the instant a counter-battery sweep lit up the crew's receivers. An electronic eye had found them, and a response was already spinning up. One earlier harassing volley had done its job and invited trouble. Under pressure, procedure compressed. Target data that normally flows through confirmed satellite updates had to be validated against pre-surveyed coordinates and pushed through a hardened link with redundancy at every step. With interference thickening across navigation bands, the crew shifted from ideal inputs to trusted backups. It wasn't pretty, but it was robust and, above all, fast. The launcher's automated cycle came alive. Safety margins between shots engineered to protect coatings, seals, and internal wiring from heat stress were shaved to the minimum. Each ignition would draw attention from every radar and thermal sensor in range. Still, the choice was stark: fire and move, or be fixed and finished. Driver aligned along an egress route, engine hot, waiting on the call. First round tore upward, then the next, plumes carving bright pillars into the night. Hostile emitters pivoted, tracking the launch signatures. Debris already began to pepper the ground around the vacated position as the third shot shook the chassis. The final round roared free and, on the word, the driver kicked the heavy transport into motion. The launcher lurched away as blasts clawed at the earth they'd just left behind. Alive, moving, and committed, the salvo was on its arc toward the depot. High above, each warhead rode a layered guidance stack built for contested skies. Satellite cues were welcomed when clean, ignored when spoofed or drowned in noise. The navigation brain could revert to self-contained sensors and pre-planned behaviors, smoothing out shocks and shedding bad data. Flight path wasn't a neat curve. It was a series of subtle, deliberate irregularities designed to bend interception math out of shape. Defenders took the handoff from wide-area surveillance to short-range fire control. A local battery locked onto the lead track and pushed two interceptors into the air. On the scope, the geometry looked perfect. In the air, it wasn't S. The incoming round shifted a few degrees off the expected line, then settled again, just enough to move the intercept window. Fragments peppered the skin, but the critical internals held, and the guidance corrected the jolt. A gun missile hybrid farther east swiveled, trying to burn through ground clutter and heat shimmer. Terrain favored the attack. A low ridge masked the approach until the last stretch, denying a steady lock. As the lead track skimmed into view, a second round appeared on a slightly offset axis. Faced with two fast, small signatures and incomplete data, the defenders split their fire, having focus at the very moment concentration mattered most. Closer in, the last protective layer woke up. A tracked vehicle with rapid-fire cannons slewed to face the gap, pouring tracer into a narrow corridor. The attacker chose the low route, staying inside ground interference as long as possible, then knifed through the storm. At that speed and profile, even a dense wall of fire left seams. The depot sprawled across open ground storage halls, blast walls, service lanes, pallets by the thousands. The lead warhead sensor read the contours and handed off to impact logic. The strike punched through an outer wall and into stacked munitions. That was the spark. Inside, pressure and heat multiplied in confined aisles, propellant ignited in batches, sympathetic detonations ripped along rows, lifting roof sections and driving shock through the framework. A second incoming round burrowed into an adjacent block, hitting more rockets and bulk stores. Shock piled on shock. Flames leapt across lanes fed by packaging, fuel, and ruptured containers. Third round angled in from a different bearing, exploiting a gap where sensors were saturated by heat and reflection. It plunged into a western bay holding specialized payloads, and a rolling fireball swept the open pads, spraying burning material that turned service roads into rivers of flame. Across the complex, crews sprinted for hardened shelters. Inside the perimeter, forklifts and service trucks lay scattered under twisted metal. On the far side of the fence line, alarms wailed and windows shattered under the overpressure. Storage bays kept cooking off, each blast sending debris into neighboring blocks and sowing a cascade of failures. A towering column of smoke and incandescent fragments climbed skyward, visible from far beyond the district. By the time the last echoes faded, the target no longer resembled a functioning logistics node. A conservative tally pointed to thousands of tons of ammunition rendered unusable. Operationally, that means a sudden constriction in fire support across the sector. What had been a steady rhythm shells in, shells out fractured. Stock had to be dispersed to smaller sites, guarded by more people, moved along longer routes, and tracked with less efficiency. Every transfer added friction, and friction is the enemy of massed fires. On the launch crew's side, the story was preparation meeting improvisation. They'd trained to exploit precision guidance, but they'd also rehearsed the day those aids would be denied. Interference smeared satellite updates, they didn't pause. They pivoted to pre-surveyed solutions and trusted their onboard stabilization to carry the aim point. When doctrine favored generous spacing between shots, they accepted hotter cycles to outrun counter-battery. When a clean relocation timeline collided with the need to finish the firing plan, they took the calculated risk and executed. The defenders were competent and layered: search, track, engage, repeat. In many scenarios, that depth is decisive. Here, terrain masking, sensor saturation, and a salvo that forced split-second human decisions opened a narrow corridor. The attackers threaded that corridor with small plan deviations that yielded outsized effects. A few degrees of lateral drift, a slightly altered descent angle, a staggered approach that never let the defense settle. Beyond the spectacle, the strategic result mattered most. Interrupt a major hub and you don't just create a crater, you change behavior. Fire planners must rewrite taskings. Batteries that once fired freely ration their shots. Logistics units abandon efficiency for survivability, scattering stock in ways that invite interdiction. The map doesn't just look different, it behaves differently. There's a broader lesson for modern conflict. Rigid plans crack under pressure. The edge goes to the side that blends resilient technology with crews trained to pivot without losing discipline. Redundant navigation, hardened links, pre-planned counters to jamming, disciplined shoot and scoot, and the humility to break routine when survival demands it together, those habits turn narrow windows into opportunity. For viewers tracking this war, it's tempting to fixate on hardware labels. But what carried this mission wasn't a brochure stat, it was a team compressing a checklist, trusting preparation, and executing under the worst conditions. The equipment opened a path. Human judgment kept them on it. What's your take on the tactics and trade-offs here? Drop a comment, like and subscribe for more documentary-style battlefield breakdowns.